Well, welcome back to the Ex-Homeschoolers Club. I'm, of course, your host, Jacob Gooden, and today I am joined by my friend, Keara. Many of you will probably remember her as Keara Hatton, but she is now Keara Minshall. Did I say that correctly? Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. We kind of know each other a little bit. There's definitely an age gap. There's like a 4-year age gap between us, and so we don't know each other super well, but we're gonna get to know each other better today. And so, Keara, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. This is really cool. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm stoked you reached out to me, and that's been one of the greatest things about this show is having people reach out. So, um, you know, I guess to kick it off, like one, if you have a story, please like reach out to me and come on the show, share it with me. Even if you don't want to come on the show, and just we need to reconnect as a community, as a homeschool weirdo community. We need to reconnect. So,
Mhm.
but Keara, let's set the scene for your homeschool life. Okay. Um, Siblings, family life, how long were you homeschooled, that kind of thing. Like, walk me kind of through an overall picture of your homeschool journey.
Yeah. So my journey is a little bit chaotic. I moved to California when I was 3.5.
Okay.
I have a younger sister and younger brother. We are all 18 months apart.
Wow.
So yeah, lots of fighting growing up, but we love each other all the same. Um, my parents were not folks who were like, "We're gonna homeschool our children."
Mhm.
We moved to Fillmore, California, and the school system was horrible. I think it
Yeah.
still is pretty bad. To the
Yeah.
point, like, the city of Fillmore is like, "You don't have to go to our schools. You can go to any other school. That's
Mhm.
okay." Usually, that's not the case with public school.
Right.
Um, so my parents tried putting me into private school in Fillmore because it was close by. So I did private school kindergarten, and the age cutoff in California is very different than it is around the world, or at least around the rest of the country. Um, so so I started technically young.
Okay.
If I was born in the Midwest, I would have been a year behind what I am.
Okay.
So kindergarten was fine. I loved it. But my parents were like, private school is not financially wise, especially since we have 3 kids. So we're gonna try homeschooling our first grader. And my mom had never even kind of dreamt about homeschooling. She would tell you that if when she was a young adult, if someone told her she'd be homeschooling her kids, she would have laughed in their faces. But
I
she
think that's
tried it.
most homeschool moms, to be honest. I think most of them were
Exactly.
like, "This is not the life I envisioned for myself."
Yep. Yep. And so she tried it for a year, and she did it like the very raw, pure homeschooling where you don't
Okay.
have a co-op or anything. And we were all so miserable. Um, it-
Same.
so I was like, man, I miss like seeing friends and stuff.
Yeah.
And so my parents were like, okay, well, we either put her back in private school or we have to figure something out. Not sure what we're supposed to be doing, but maybe we hold her back because she's so young. And if she were to go to college, she's going to be 17 when she starts college. And I
Right.
don't know if we're okay with that. So they tried holding me back by putting me into a different private school. So I did first grade again, kind of for only like a month or two. I forget how long I
Okay.
was there. Short period of time
Yeah.
because I was one of the smarter ones in the class. And because of that, I was being abused and bullied by the teachers.
Oh, gee, that's fun.
And I didn't learn anything. Um,
Yeah.
and so my parents were like, not this. And so they took me out and they put me in second grade. They're like, you know what? Holding her back isn't a good thing. We're going to put her in private school second grade again. And that was good. That was a good year. Learned a lot of social skills there. But then the third grade teacher we heard was abusing the children. And then
Mhm.
this was in a time where kids weren't heard. They weren't heard. So
Right.
there were all these kids in third grade being like duct taped and locked in the closet if they got a bad grade or misbehaved just a little bit. And I was terrified. I believed my friends who were a year ahead of
Yeah.
me telling me these things. And I am grateful to have parents who believed me. And
Mhm.
they're like, you know what? Homeschooling it is, but
Yeah.
we're going to try a co op because we've been hearing about co ops and that sounds like a good thing to do. Later on, that teacher ended up being fired. So justice was served. But
Good.
I was homeschooled because of that.
Okay.
And that's when I entered the scene of group solutions with about third
Okay.
grade.
Yeah.
And then we like I think then a year later we joined Achieve.
Mhm.
So did that for all the way up until sophomore year of high school. We introduced classical conversations, which was kind of like a almost like a charter school system, but you met every week and you took more standardized testing and
Right.
stuff. And it was smaller classes with the exact same teacher and the exact same students. So it was more of like a traditional class setup. And that was really good, but it was weird because I was like the only girl. It was me and one other girl in the whole class. Um, and then after sophomore year, my parents got divorced and moved to Ohio and went to public school and finished out high school there.
We'll get more into some of the homeschool stuff, but that transition to go to public school, was that like a big shock for you? Or do you feel like it wasn't? I mean, there's a lot going on in life too. So maybe there was a big shock just in general, but like, but was that difficult, challenging? Like, was it easy all of a sudden?
So I think because I had done 2 years of private school as a kid, it wasn't a total
Mhm.
shock for me.
Okay.
If anything, I was just really angry
Right.
because I thought it was stupid. Because the
Okay.
public school system, I had teachers be like, well, we still have 40 minutes and you can't leave this room. So I want you to just do this work
Right.
for no reason. And I'm
Right.
like, this is the most ridiculous design. You ha- we're done with all the learning we were
Right.
supposed to do today and you legally just have to keep us in this little box. And in
Yeah.
the Midwest at least, the schools is like a prison literally. There you
Mhm.
cannot go outside at all. And
Okay.
not every and very few classrooms have windows for tornado reasons.
Yeah.
So, it's just dark overhead
Yeah.
lighting for 8 hours.
Yeah. Just stuck inside. Dang. Man, yeah. Well, and if you're used to homeschool, I mean, that's the great thing about it. It's like if you do math in 15 minutes, then math is done in 15 minutes. If it
Exactly.
takes you 4 hours, then it took you 4
It
hours.
took
Like
you
there's
4
no in
hours.
between, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
eh, and yeah, well, and then also sometimes being able to work on your own schedule is like also helpful. Like I was more of a
Mhm,
night person, and
mhm,
so I did school a lot at night, and
mhm.
everyone in my house would be asleep and I would be up reading, right?
Yeah,
When you put yourself in a traditional school setting, it's not always the case that you don't get that luxury.
exactly. Yeah, no. Everyone was more
So
depressed that way too.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, my wife went to private school but she would talk about like getting up and having to get ready for school. And I'm like, that just
Mhm,
sounds awful. Like it just
mhm.
I'm
It
like,
was.
my first 2 hours of school were in my pajamas, um, and definitely like more of that. What people think of as that more traditional homeschool experience, right? Of like a kid in their
Mhm.
pajamas and whatever. But
Yeah, that was
anyway.
something my parents they I think they were afraid of us becoming stereotypical homeschool kids, so they're like,
Uh-huh.
"By 8 a.m., you
Yeah.
need to be dressed and at the table."
Okay. My mom, I think, tried to do that, and then I think it was just a losing battle for her. Like it was just we fought it so hard that I think she just
Yeah,
gave up. Where she's like,
that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
they're getting there, but um, I don't know. No, it was funny because she was so used to me being this more night person, and then
Mhm.
when I moved home after college for a year, I got a job as a barista. Well, when
Mhm.
you drink coffee first thing in the morning, most people
Mhm.
got to show up to work. I was showing up to work, leaving, having to get up at 4 a.m., be at work by 5:30, 6,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. And she's like, "Who is this person?" because I've never met him before. Uh, I'm like,
Yep,
it's 8:30 at night. I'm like, I'm going to bed. I'll
yep.
see you tomorrow.
That's awesome.
So, with the homeschooling stuff, so classical conversations. This I'm a little bit familiar with this because my cousin, who was also homeschooled, did classical conversations. Um, in comparison to something like a group solutions, are there particular classes you choose like, "Oh, this is what I'm gonna take through classical conversation?" No, it's just that it's its own kind of curriculum that you sign up for.
Mhm.
So what exactly what kind of stuff is being taught through classical conversations?
Classical Conversations was a good hybrid of taking, like, traditional like, schooling that you would see at a private school or public school and merging it with, a co-op, like Group Solutions. So
Okay.
you would meet only once a week. You had
Right.
the same teacher
Yeah.
teaching all of the subjects. We had a let's see, we had a Bible class that we had to take. We did a history. We did a debate slash politics class. There was math, grammar, think oh, and an art. But the art sophomore year was theater, so we had to put on
Okay.
a Shakespeare play.
Okay.
It was a lot more rigorous than something like Group Solutions,
Right.
especially because it was weekly. Oh, I took Latin, so it was a language. That
Yeah.
is something about classical conversations. If you were in classical conversations your whole um, childhood, you would have been fluent in Latin.
Okay. Well, that's
Um,
interesting.
yeah,
That's honestly a great skill.
I agree.
Because Latin is the base of basically every language
Hmm.
under the sun. Yeah, and
Hmm.
just so for anyone listening who's like not familiar with anything we're talking about when we say like group solutions, classical conversation, you did a great job explaining what classical conversations is. Group solutions, on the other hand, of that was basically an every other week meeting that was 3 periods. So you took 3 different classes and taught by other parents, other homeschool parents. And it was a mix of like, there were some academic things like you could take a science class, you could take an English class, you could take things like that. But then there was also fun classes mixed in there, like cooking, guitar class. I know there was a games class at one point.
Oh yeah,
They taught golf,
I didn't know that one.
filmmaking. Yeah, I think the golf only lasted 1 year. One of the dads, I think, taught that. And I took a class 1 year that was, oh man, I'm trying to remember what it was, but we like joined up with the golf class for 1 week, and I think it was just really clear that none of us were good at it, and also like golf clubs are expensive.
Hmm.
um, and I'm pretty sure as kids we didn't really understand that, so I think we were also just like beating these clubs to to death
Yeah.
potentially. Um, but I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, but it was kind of more of a little bit less structured. I know parents did have to submit like their curriculum of like what they were going to teach in the syllabus and all that kind of stuff. But it was, to your point, it's not a weekly thing. It's not a build out of like every single year you're going to be guaranteed you have these classes. It's really
Right.
up to moms, to parents to be like, well, next year I'm going to teach this kind of a thing.
Right.
And the other thing with group solutions was that if you wanted to participate in group solutions, you as a parent had a role to teach a class. So it
Right.
wasn't just a like, oh, sign your kids up, drop them off, that kind of a thing. It was like you also are actively being a teacher of something um, as well. So, well, we were chatting beforehand that your mom kind of headed up yearbook for group
Mhm.
solutions, both as a class and then also just as a thing that we got to take home at the end of the year.
Mhm.
Um, and and then I also know that you are a filmmaker type person. But do you get that kind of creative picking up a camera aspect of your life from your mom?
I get it actually from both my parents,
Okay.
which surprises a lot of people because my dad is not artistic,
Mhm.
um, but both of my parents tried to go into the film industry
Okay.
when they were about 20 years old.
Okay.
My dad wanted to do the editing side of things, and my mom wanted to do acting, and then realized she wanted to be behind the camera. And then both of them, somewhere in the early 20s, either like my dad tried the industry, hated how they treated people, and was like, "This isn't for me." So he went down business route, became good at that. And then my mom still had a heart for it, but kind of in a similar vein was like, "I don't like how Hollywood is." So if the industry was like it is today when she was looking at careers, I think she would have continued, because it's not just Hollywood now. You've got
Mhm.
all the things, um,
Right.
and I think she would have gone into it. So um, to that degree, I have two storyteller parents, um, and I just kind of found it myself. They never pushed it on me. They never even told me that that was something they wanted to do until I started picking up on it.
Okay.
Because it started when I was in 5th grade. There was this little iPod Touch app called Video Star, and you could
Mhm.
make a whole music video with it.
Uh-huh.
And I would wrangle up my neighborhood friends, and I would write a story with them and direct
Yeah.
them, and it was so much fun. And then I
Yeah.
joined video production, with
Right.
Group Solutions, and that was kind of where that really kicked off.
Obviously, filmmaking kind of yeah, birthed out of those early years, those,
Hmm.
grade school years. And then that was kind of what you pursued in college. So once you graduated, was it an instant I'm headed to college, or did you take some time? And then yeah, and then what did the college years look like? And then we'll get into a little bit more of like what you're doing today.
I have to go to it started at the video production class in Group Solutions.
Mhm.
I took that class my in middle school, and that's where I learned like the whole art of filmmaking, and I
Okay.
fell in love with it. Um, my script got chosen my first semester to be made, and so we made The Typing Terror, starring Caleb Savard and Emily Aldrich,
Yes.
and I just fell in love with it, but I didn't know that was what I wanted to do to make a living. So I
Right.
started pursuing interior design like all through high school, and then
Okay.
went to public school, and I
Mhm.
missed making videos so much that I
Yeah.
created a club, and I started teaching people. Basically took the idea of video production, the class, and made a video production club. It was like the coolest thing I've ever done with my life. My mom was like, "Keara, you're not going to want to hear this, but I think you want to go into film." And I was like, "Mom, you don't know what you're talking about." And then
Yeah.
like a month later, I was like, "I'm sorry, you know exactly what you're talking about." And so I went to the University of Cincinnati and studied filmmaking. Um,
Mhm.
and I brought the club with me,
Okay.
and it is still doing its thing today. It's oh wow, how old is it now? It's about 8 years old now. So
Wow.
it's cool to just see how many people have like fall in love with filmmaking and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, college itself was really hard,
Mhm.
for not the reasons probably you're thinking. It was hard more socially and emotionally, other than also going through a pandemic with it.
Right.
Um, but when I look back on it, like it was a complete waste of my time. Um, The only thing that made it worth it was video production club, and that's
Mhm.
where I met my husband.
Okay.
Otherwise, the schooling itself, I was very prepared for because of how I was homeschooled. Homeschooling
Right.
prepared me more for university than public school did,
Mhm.
um, probably because of time management.
Right.
Yeah.
So you said so during pandemic, so you were in college 2020. When did you start college and when
I,
did you finish?
s- I started 2018, graduated fall of 2019. Or sorry, 21.
21. Okay.
So I had 3.5 years.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Just to kind of give people an idea too
Yeah.
of like um that's one of the questions I've been getting more and more, and I feel bad sometimes when I don't get this answered of like, well, how old are you guys? I'm like, well, I'm 28, but I'm interviewing people who are like all over the spectrum.
Mhm.
Um, you know, older than me, younger than me, all those types of things. So, okay. So continue. 2019, 2021, you're in college, pandemic, video club, all these wonderful things. Best thing to come out of it was a husband. I
Yep.
would argue that the best thing to come out of my college experience was my wife. So
Mhm.
I'm with you.
At least with my industry, like you like going to university, they made it seem like you needed a degree in order
Right.
to do. But no, you just need to learn how to network.
Yeah.
Which I did learn that. I did
Mhm.
learn how to network. And I appreciate that, but I wouldn't say it was worth that much money.
So after college, then, like, how long did it take for you to get kind of started in like, okay, I'm actually like making a living doing this?
Ooh, making a living doing it. Say
Well,
I
I mean,
technically
yeah, good
I
question. The arts are definitely the underpaid. We do it for love of the game, not for the paycheck
exactly,
always.
exactly. Well, I technically started working locally 2 months after I started college. So my I've had my own business since 2018 as a independent contractor, and I've done a lot of local commercials and video projects here in Cincinnati since then. But once I graduated, it took like 9 months for work to pick up. Granted, COVID really hurt the film industry because for a
Right.
while there we couldn't make anything, and
Yeah.
then we could only make stuff if we were all 6 feet apart, and that's really hard to do in front of a camera and behind a camera. Most of the sets are like house, and everybody's in tight quarters, and you have gear and equipment. You're all breathing on each
Yeah.
other anyway, but it
Yeah.
made it difficult because then also we had to like take COVID tests every day we were on set. But after that 9 month period, I got brought on to a Netflix movie, and I moved to Atlanta for 6 months and got to work on that. And that was the coolest experience I've ever had. And then I came back to Cincinnati, got married, planned to move to Atlanta, ended up not moving to Atlanta. And I've just been doing local commercials since. And
Yeah.
then I'll go back down to Atlanta when there is work, but the Hollywood industry is kind of in a crisis right now. So
Yeah.
we're being patient.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes you just gotta wait for that right project sometimes. But
Yep.
so I did a little bit of snooping because I think you are the only person within my network of people, I'm pretty sure, who no, I take this back. I was gonna say you're the only person I know with an IMDb page. That's not true, because I did interview uh, uh, Andy Lopez or Loa. I'm sorry, I interviewed Laura Lopez. Been chatting with the Lopez twins.
I love
They
them.
also have IMDb pages, so you're not the only person I know with an IMDb page. But anyway, but that was when I was preparing for our conversation. I was like, okay, I got to check this out. I got to see what you've worked on. And this Netflix movie that is coming out, right? It's not out yet.
Mhm.
Um,
March.
yeah, it looks really cool. Tell us a little bit about that, and then what you did for that movie.
So the movie is called The Electric State. I'm allowed to say that now. It's called The Electric State. It's a Russo brother film, um, and it's going to come out March 14th. I was a staffed on-set production assistant for that movie, so I worked really closely with the assistant directors as an assistant directing department, and my job ranged from everything, but mainly my purpose was to um, be the source of communication to everybody on set, keep everybody on time, make sure set was running smoothly, make sure everyone was safe, um, manage the cast, make sure they were where they needed to be on time. Um, when we did reshoots back in the spring, actually, we did a whole nother month of reshoots. I was promoted to the motion capture production assistant, so then I was in charge of managing the motion team. So they're actors who wear the really cool bodysuits who we get to put animated characters on their movements later on in the production.
Yeah,
So all the robots are actually real people,
yeah.
which was fun. And so
Oh, that's cool.
that was my department I got to oversee and take care of.
Yeah, and I'm gonna drop a link to watch the trailer because the trailer just dropped recently. But yeah, Millie Bobby Brown, Chris Pratt, uh, in a world where robots exist, and not every robot looks the same. They all are like really. I watched a trailer last night. I was like, this movie looks awesome.
It's gonna be really sweet. It's, written by the same writers who did, Captain America and who did, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Um, it I highly recommend watching it. I was
Very
lucky
cool.
to be able to work on it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because like, I'm stoked. I'm stoked. I'm like, and I don't get that. I don't get that excited for movies that are not like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah.
not. I don't know. We're in a
Yeah,
crisis, right? Like you said, we're in a
yeah.
crisis right now where
Yep.
everything is like remakes and sequels
Yep.
and all that kind of stuff. And so, uh, yeah. But watching that, I was like, I'm genuinely interested in this. For the sci-fi element, for the story looks really cool and things like that. I wanted to bring up another project that's on your IMDb page because I have questions about this. I have not watched this show, but you worked on a show that's called Homeschooled.
Yeah.
Tell me about that because I definitely added it to my watch list last night.
Oh my goodness. Homeschooled was my very first television project. Um, we filmed season 2, spring of 2020. We actually got shut down by COVID and had to rewrite the whole script and come back in September. So that was a whole mess. But I got to be the second assistant director for it. And it was so much fun. Um, it's very low quality, very low budget, but it's just fun to make a story about another perspective of homeschooling. Because the concept of this show is this is a larger homeschool family with a big sister who like angrily left home for a long time, and then finds out she gets a call one day that her parents died. So now she has to raise her younger siblings, and just the journey of relearning family and love and kindness and just being able to face trauma as a family unit and overcome it. And she homeschools all of them.
Hey, I mean that story is not that far off from some people's reality.
Hmm.
I know people that are living that right now, so
Yep.
definitely will be giving it a watch. Because I was just intrigued right off the bat by I was like, is this a school project? What is? It was
Nope.
like, what is this? No, this is like a legit. It's on Roku, I
Hmm.
believe. Um, so anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. Again, another thing to add to the watch list, if you're interested, if you want to see what Kiera's worked on, um, check out her IMDb page, and then give these movies a watch.
It's been
Please
fun.
do, please do. Um, okay, so I want to talk a little bit about like storytelling, if you're down,
Of course.
because um, it's something that I'm actively trying to learn. Right, I'm
Hmm.
actively trying to learn how to tell a good story, how to make the show engaging, how to that kind of a
Hmm.
thing. But as someone who does that for a living, like I, I don't know. Tell me about it. Like, give me um a nugget of gold here, I guess. But like, is there anything in particular that you feel like if someone's wanting to learn how to tell a good story, whether it's film, photography, whatever, podcast, um, you know, where where should they start? What should they be looking for?
You want to start by figuring out what kind of story you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
It helps to think in framework of genre. Are
Okay.
you trying to tell a story that is joyful? Or are you trying to tell a painful story? Or are you trying to bring um, and then I guess you want to ask yourself the next question is like, well, then who are you trying to reach?
Hmm.
And how are you trying to reach them? Because, like, you can be telling a really sad story, but if it just ends on the sad note, then what was the point? But if you're trying to tell a sad story that provokes an action for somebody to start making a difference in the world, there you go.
Right.
I think those are just like when it comes to the first two questions you want to ask yourself is what kind of story are you trying to tell and who are you trying to tell it to?
This show originally started with kind of this idea of kind of just sharing the bad about homeschooling, kind of the nasty, right? And most of that stemmed from my own, like, having left it, looking back, things I didn't like. I think I had overall a good homeschool experience, but I know a lot of people who didn't. And so I was like, oh, I want to just kind of like focus in on that
Mhm.
and tell these stories. And then I sat with it for about a year and I was like, I think this is the wrong choice
Mhm.
because it's very easily just going to become, well, you're just hateful kind of a thing.
Mhm.
Um, because there's not a purpose behind it other than like, let's just share these stories.
Right.
And what I settled on was kind of what the slogan of the show is, which is the good, the bad, and the ugly of homeschooling, which is we have great stories. We have hilarious times of being homeschool kids. We also have some really bad times. And there's some really ugly shit out there.
Yes.
Um, and I wanted to hopefully create a space that people felt safe talking about any and all of that.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's why some episodes are going to be much more happy,
Mhm.
because people had good experiences, or that's just what we're choosing to focus on that day. Other
Mhm.
people, they had some bad stuff, and we gotta chat about it.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that's helped kind of having that direction, like you said, of kind of choosing why do I want to tell this, and then what's the outcome of this. And that part for me came from I met a homeschool family here in Tennessee, and I realized that I was like, they don't know what they don't know,
Mhm.
right? Mom and dad don't know. This is the first time they're homeschooling anybody. It, they don't know what they don't know. But
Right.
can I provide them an opportunity to hear stories of what I know about
Mhm.
what worked, what didn't work?
Mhm.
And can I get my friends to come along with me to tell those
Mhm.
stories, right? Because the things that worked for me didn't work for everybody, and the things that worked for somebody didn't, Um,
Right.
I think a lot of people now are learning to tell stories, right? We have such an influx of content creation and things
Mhm.
like that, but people lack the idea of like, how do you tell a good story, right? What is the purpose of it? Um, so that's important. Do you have anything in the works right now that you can talk about?
I'm finally breaking into writing and directing my own commercials,
Mhm.
so that's exciting. Otherwise, I've been screenwriting because Hollywood is in a major crisis right now. I think we're seeing the downfall of Hollywood. Um, like, there's a mass exodus of filmmakers leaving the industry.
Right.
So what I'm doing right now is hunkering down in screenwriting and working on buttoning up my scripts. So if and when things do start opening back up, I can submit my work. Um,
Right. I think what's really interesting, and I mean, you might know more about this than I do, but so a couple of years ago, I went to a really big podcasting convention, and there was people from iHeartRadio there. There was people from ABC. There was
mhm,
people from um, uh, like Amazon, like these big companies, right?
mhm,
And one of the things they were talking about was at the time, a lot of scripts that people were writing were getting picked up to do these podcasts, to do a podcast version and storytelling. And if they could effectively tell that story just through audio, then they were starting to get picked up for a movie or a television show or some other
mhm,
media, right? Animation, that kind of thing.
mhm.
And so I think that's interesting. I don't know if you're still seeing if that's still pretty prevalent now or not, but
I mean, I definitely think it's prevalent. I think it's just hard right now. The people with the money who will pick up the scripts aren't making things right now.
right, right, yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
it's hard. I think a lot of the big boys that are playing, they're cashing in on sequels and
Yeah. They won't.
reboots and all that kind
Mhm.
of a thing. And it doesn't help when like the biggest movie of this year is a Marvel franchise movie, right?
Mhm.
that
Yep.
doesn't that doesn't help when you want to get other projects made that have
Exactly.
nothing to do with any of that. So
We are due for an indie revolution here soon, though. So
yeah, yeah.
just
So
a
what do you
matter of
think of studios like? I know like A24, they put out a good number of stuff. And I know obviously like, there are some really cool like film festivals that happen. I know Nashville does their own film festival. It's a lot of
Mhm,
documentaries, but there are some like shorter films as well.
mhm.
But yeah, do you think what do you think? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on what it's going to take for things to kind of flip, or you think it's just time?
It's just time because we're
Okay.
already starting that. Because to put it in perspective, people I know who've been in this industry for 20 or more years are switching careers because they
Mhm.
can't put a roof over their head anymore.
Right.
Um, it's it's a matter of make or break. It's either going to be the industry completely collapses and we're going to go a while without making anything because we don't can't afford to make anything, or it's going to be people are going to be like, you know what, we're tired of this, and then there's going to be a special group of people with money who will fund independent
Right.
films, and they're going to be like, yeah, we're tired of watching the same movies over and over again, so we're just going to use our own money and we're going to make stuff.
Right.
That's what I think is going to happen. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of when.
Yeah. I think it'd be interesting to see too a rise of like people kind of like a crowd-funded movie
Mm.
industry to some degree, right?
That's what
I
Angel
know.
Studios does.
Okay. So, because I had this, I used to work in the Web3 arena, crypto,
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff, which I know is like dirty bad words to a lot of people and, just reeks of scammy. I was just a production guy. I just made the videos behind the scenes. Um,
Oh yeah.
but one of the things that they talked about was using something like an NFT, right, to have people buy into a project,
Mhm.
and kind of own a piece of that, right? And there's
Mhm.
many ways to do this, but there was a couple movies at the time that were getting made that I thought was really interesting, right? It's like you spend
Mhm.
$300, I get to own this piece of this movie, right?
Mhm.
And I get to have my name in the credits and all these things,
Mhm.
um, exclusive access to the release, all those types of things. But we get to make this movie that if enough people are behind it,
Mhm.
it could be a blockbuster, right? It could be
Right.
this mega film.
Yep.
And so I don't know. I like you said, Angel Studios does that.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Maybe that's a way forward for some people.
Hey, it's better than where we're at right now, but
Yeah.
we need to figure out the streaming service thing. That's what's causing most of the issues.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because that has a lot to do with it's like royalties, right? It's a big chunk of it, right? And royalties with
Everything.
streaming is just like
Mhm.
absolute in the in the
It
shitter
doesn't
right
it's
now. It's
exactly.
like doesn't exist. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, no, it's important. People need to get paid, and
Exactly.
you are correct. Yeah. The music industry is the same way, right? It's
Yeah.
like people look at the success stories of people like a Taylor Swift and things like that, uh but your average little hometown band on
Mhm.
Spotify is making pennies on the dollar with their streams. So,
Mhm.
support artists, guys, if you
Yep.
can.
We need it.
not everything not everything is free, and be okay with the fact that sometimes you got to pay to watch something.
Mhm.
That being said, do you still enjoy going to the movies?
Oh,
Is there
yeah.
something about like if you're going to watch a film or even a TV show, but like um do you find it more magical to be in a movie theater than at home? Okay.
100%. Well, especially because we've taken away that magic. We're
Mhm.
like, "We're gonna just" you can pull it up on your laptop, on your phone. The
Yeah.
screen can get smaller and smaller, and you're gonna watch
Yeah.
these grandiose movies that were spent like $300 billion on, and you're gonna watch it like that big, and you're gonna be like, it was okay." Like,
Yeah.
no, you gotta like maybe go get dressed up, bring a date, get some
Yeah.
popcorn, like walk into an experience, let yourself be surrounded by high quality speakers with projectors with higher quality lenses than your TV or your phone, and just let yourself
Mhm.
just like forget the world for a minute,
Yeah.
somewhere you can't pause the movie and just enjoy the story. Because
Yeah.
when you're in an environment where like kids can be screaming or you hear ambulances or you have to use bathrooms, you keep pausing it, you're taking yourself out of the story and out of the purpose of a movie or a play is to help the audience like forget your life for a moment and just jump into a different story,
Yeah.
experience someone else's emotions.
I can definitely attest. I recently went and saw a movie called Rear Window, which is a very
Mm.
old movie.
Mhm.
But this was like the 60th anniversary of that movie or something. So they re-released it in theaters. And one, it's an amazing film. If you haven't watched it, it's absolutely fantastic. Have you seen this movie that I'm talking
Mm-mm.
about? No. Okay.
I know about it
So
though.
yeah. So, but overall, the basic premise of the movie is a guy in a wheelchair looking out his back window, and he can see
Mm,
all of his neighbors, and he starts to uncover this like murder plot, and he sees this glimpse into everyone's life through the
yeah.
rear window, right? Um, the movie is very simple, but like to watch it in a movie theater was so magical, right? It was just like
Mhm.
we were there with other people who were passionate about this movie, who it felt very much like, oh, like none of us ever everyone knows what's going to happen in this movie, but because
Mhm.
we've all seen it before, but there was just some magic about we're all here together. It was like watching it again for the first time. So
Exactly.
go to the movies, people. Just do it. Just
Please.
take yourself out on a date, whether it's with somebody or not. I like going to the movies by
Exactly.
myself.
Me
Um,
too.
get yourself a popcorn. Go do it.
Mhm.
Okay, I want to pivot. You talked about making commercials, so
Mm.
I'm interested in that as well because now, like you said, you're starting to direct them. You're starting to kind of be the head honcho on these guys. What are you looking at when it comes to a commercial of like the storytelling aspect? I mean, obviously directing is different than writing, but it can overlap a little bit. But what are you looking for when you either pitch one of these or you get pitched a commercial to direct or something like that? Like, is there something you're looking forward to, a story or a genre that you're like, okay, I want to learn how to tell this story, or I want to tell this particular thing?
So for I work on a lot of commercials just to pay the bills, but when I
Right.
am able to write and direct them, I try to make mine look like a short film.
Okay.
I try to tell ones that tell a, a story like a drama or a comedy, ones that revolve around a character or an event or a collective of people on a similar mission. I tell a beginning, middle, and end, even if it's
Right.
only 30 seconds. Those are
Right.
kind of the one those are the stories that I do best directing.
Hmm.
Um, those are the ones that if I'm going to work in commercial, that's what I want to be doing. Otherwise, I've
Yeah.
worked on a bunch of random stuff like dude wipes. That was an interesting one.
I have a friend who I went to college with, and he was a part of the like Old Spice team that has made some of the Old Spice commercials. And I was always just like, what are these? They're really cool. They're creative. They stick in your brain.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, sometimes you're just like, what is this? Like, and then
I've asked
everyone's
myself
also
that a
seen
lot.
that commercial of like, come on down to whatever. And it's like, what is this? What are we selling? Right. Um, but yeah, when I was reading through your LinkedIn and stuff and kind of prepping, and I was thinking about like commercials. I don't know if you're familiar with like Rhett and Link, they're the Good Mythical Morning guys.
Mhm.
Um, but years and years ago, they used to also make commercials, and they would put a comedy spin on them. There is a taxidermy place in Ojai, California, and the guy who runs it goes by Chuck Testa. And if you've never seen that commercial, I highly recommend anybody just
Okay.
like go on YouTube, look up like Chuck Testa. It's so funny. It's like a poorly made commercial. Like that's kind of what their bread and butter was. Like they just make these kind of like awful commercials, but they were like hilarious, right? They told some kind of story.
Yeah.
But this guy was such a character, and I ran into him one day at a coffee shop, and I was like, you're Chuck Testa. Like it just stuck with this kind of cultural thing. It's just really funny. Anyway,
Yeah.
but I know you make better commercials than that. I watched a couple last night. I was like, these are way better than that. But that's where my brain instantly went, was like these really, and maybe it's because also going back to like the homeschool days and
Mhm.
the video production class. You guys did a great job, but also looking back at that stuff, do you cringe at all? Are you like,
Oh, yeah.
what?
I have a little thumb drive that I keep in a safe, and I don't let people see it, but it
Mm,
has all the music videos that I made in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade.
yeah.
Horrible, but I go back every once in a while, like, if I'm ever, like, down in the pits of, like, I'm
Yeah.
not progressing as an artist or whatever, I go if I'm ever down in the pits, I put
Yeah.
that in and I look at them and I'm like, "Wow!" Just to see, like little Kira just being like, just enjoying the process, not caring what the result was, just
Right.
reminds me that, like, okay, it may not have turned out good, but there was more joy made in that than there was in the like $500 million project or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just a good reminder, and also just being like, okay, I'm not there anymore. I'm over here now. So it's like there's
Yeah.
been progress made.
Yeah.
It's just encouraging.
Yeah. I mean, I work with a lot of YouTubers. There's this kind of theory in the YouTube world right now that if every video you make is just 1% better, just 1% better, you make 100 videos, you're 100% better, right?
Yep,
Like that's all it takes. And that's a lot of videos, that's
exactly.
a lot of time. It's a 10 there's a lot of people talk about like the 10,000 hours. This is kind of a musician thing, but it's been co-opted by everybody else. But if you spend 10,000 hours playing guitar, you'll be a master at it. If you spend
Exactly.
10,000 hours writing movies, filming them, directing them, whatever, you will be a master at it, right?
Hmm.
So, um, I don't know if you knew this. I talked about this on my episode with Carrie France, but Carrie and I made a movie together kind of around the same time that the group solutions stuff was happening. My mom gave us extra credit in a class. We made a full length movie. Um,
Hey,
I doubt many people, not, I know for a fact many people have not seen it. It's about
I
50
have not
people
seen
who
it.
showed up. I will not be sending it to you because
Oh
it's awful. It's awful.
man,
Maybe I'll try to find a clip of it or something and send it, put it out there.
okay.
It'll end up on the internet at some point. Um, I'm trying to protect other people who are in it, who also know that it was cringy.
It'll work.
But hey, sometimes we got to put it out there. But
You gotta have fun.
there's so much fun that went into making that. And I, even though I was never part of like your video production club, I remember watching and seeing you guys like have so much fun making it, and it just looked, it just looks so cool, and I'm jealous. I would
Aw.
going back, I would have been like, "Mom, put me in. I want in to this group of people." If people are interested in commercials or filmmaking or something like that, and you maybe don't know what you're doing, maybe reach out to Kira. Maybe
Yeah,
she
for
can
sure.
point you in the right direction, or maybe she is the right direction.
Happy to help. I
Kira, this
love
has been
teaching people.
good. Good. This has been awesome. Are there any memories, stories, cringy moments that have kind of popped up to memory that you're like, okay, we haven't talked about this yet?
It's just been, especially today, just preparing for this. I've had just like had to like unlock the little memory box in the back of my head, because I started blocking most of it out. I think
Yeah.
I was bullied a lot, even though, which is something people are shocked by when I say, because they're like, "Well, you're homeschooled." I was like, "Well, yeah," but um, I was never the cool kid, and that was always really hard. So I blocked out most of my memories. But the memories I do have that were really good usually were revolved around like Mile High Pines. Um, that was one of the coolest community volunteering experiences I've ever done. And I've done a lot of different volunteering things, but that one was like you just got to go help this camp in the mountains, just like clean up and get ready for their summer camp or prepare them for winter. I forget exactly what it was, but we
I think
just
we
helped
did both. But yeah,
manage. Yeah. And there's just really good community, and we would like have the evenings to just play games in this big, we called it the Ark. It was this big giant building where you had like basketball courts, indoor basketball courts, and you had like foosball and all that jazz. And we also would like sing worship songs around the fire, which was always really cool under the stars. But that's where like started to like I got to meet my best friend really there. We Emily and I were school friends before that, but that's where we became like really good friends.
yeah.
And friendship has always been something that's really important to me,
Mhm.
because I grew up in Fillmore, California, and my dad didn't ever let us have any friends over when he was home. And that usually was like a small window between after school hours before he got home. So it was very lonely out
Yeah.
there. And it was hard because not a lot of people in the more coastal side of California wanted to drive their kids 50 minutes to go have a play date, um,
Yeah.
or vice versa. but gas was expensive, so it was hard for us to go to the other side too. Um,
Absolutely. I think that's important. I think that's something that not a lot of us have, like, chatted 100% about because it's like I got asked this. I got an email from a viewer on YouTube, and they were asking about bullying, and I was like, I don't remember there being bullying, but I know that it happened because now in chatting with people, I realized that it did, and
mhm,
um and on behalf of someone who I know that I've bullied people, I want to say I'm sorry that that happened to you. That's like awful, and nobody deserves that. Um, and you know, so I just wanted to say that does happen in the homeschool community, and there are ways to
mhm.
be on the lookout for it. And I've said it before on the show. I'll say it again. If you see something, say something. That goes for all types of different things, but
Yep.
bullying especially because bullying just it sucks.
Right.
And but I'm glad that you still have friends from the homeschool days. Um,
Mhm,
Emily is awesome. Emily has been on the show before. Go listen to her episode as well. We
mhm.
chat about our homeschool days as well, her homeschool days, and yeah, I'm glad that you guys are still friends. You know,
Me too.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah. To your point, friendship is important, and I think that for parents who are looking to homeschool their kids, right, knowing where you live and the people that are around you, and
Mhm,
one of the big myths about homeschooling is like, well, homeschool kids are sheltered and they're protected and they're unsocialized. Unsocialized. That's what
mhm,
I'm looking for. And it's true and not true. It can be true, right? Like you were
mhm.
isolated in Fillmore, but they're so. And I don't want to say your parents made a mistake in being like, "Oh, we're going to homeschool our kids," because that's not true at all. But maybe there was other homeschool families within Fillmore that they maybe could have done a better job being like, okay, hey, there's other kids here in Fillmore that we can be with. And also to all those homeschool families and the rest, I get why you didn't want to drive to Fillmore. It's a ways out there. It is a
It's a
ways
hot
out there.
minute.
But
But yeah, I don't want that to
reach
go
out to those
unsaid
families.
though. I don't
Yeah,
want it to
no,
go
I think
unsaid
that's
that
important.
um, if you have an extrovert kid, they're gonna hang out with people. 'Cause that's what I did. I was an extrovert being raised to be an introvert.
Yeah.
And I was the kid, I would go door to door in my neighborhood, be like, knock, knock, knock. The parent would open the door, be like, "Who's this scrawny little child?" And I'd be like, "Can so and so come out and play?" And then they'd be like, "My kid playing outside? I'll ask, but I don't think that's gonna happen." And then
Yeah.
after like repetitive pestering, they would come outside. And then before I knew it, I had like the whole neighborhood doing like dance competitions and talent shows and creating tag version 8. Like we were super
Mhm.
creative and like it just
Yeah.
you, if you have an extrovert kid, let them be an extrovert and make
Yeah.
friends. That was that made it living in Fillmore really awesome because I made a lot of cool friends with people who didn't they grew up they were in public or private school and weren't allowed to go play outside. It was like you go to school and you do homework, you eat dinner and you go to bed. And then I would jump in and be like, "Can they play outside for an hour?" And then the parents would be like, "Well, they have homework." But an hour is fine, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then before I knew it, we would be up till like 10 PM and our parents would be like, "I don't know, they need to go to bed, but they're having so much fun and
Yeah.
they're outside."
It's kind of a win-win. Look at
Kind of a
that.
win-win.
Kira out here doing the Lord's work, going door to door.
I was
They
lonely, I
probably
wanted
feared you
friends.
as much as, we fear when the Jehovah's Witnesses come knocking through the neighborhood. Yeah, they saw you coming and they were like, "Oh, no."
The
I'm just
parents
kidding.
eventually got
I'm
annoyed with
kidding.
me. They would just be like they'd just call their kid's name as soon as they saw me outside, and they would send them out.
Just go. Yeah, that's fun, though. That's fun.
Mhm,
It's fun to kinda grow up in a area too where you've got kids, like, in the neighborhood that do stuff and, just be kids and be stupid and,
mhm.
make cringy stuff. Like you said, you have a whole backlog catalog of all, the memories of doing that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
and that's awesome. So, yeah, and like you said, I love that you go back and review it, right? When you feel down and you're like,
Yep.
"No," like, but that's awesome. So, this has been awesome. I'm glad
This
we
is great.
chatted. I'm glad you
Me
reached
too.
out. And yeah, and to the audience, if you have a story you want to share, like, please reach out. It's Instagram at EXHS Club, or you can email me exhsclub@gmail.com. And that's how we get reconnected like this. And I'll say this too. If you see someone on the show that you're like, oh my God, I remember this person, text them, write them a message, say hi, say what's
Yeah,
up.
please do.
If it puts somebody in your brain to talk to them, that's the universe telling you to talk to them. Okay, just send them a message. They're not too busy. They're not too stressed. They're not, if they ignore it, they ignore it. But like, just trust me. Trust me on this one. Just do it. Put it out in the universe. Okay, the universe is telling you to do something. Do it. That being said, thank you again, Kira, for coming on. This has been
Thanks
wonderful.
for having me.
And yeah, and we're going to stay much better connected and become better friends in these coming years. I see it. I see it happening.
Please do.
So, yeah, for the rest of you, this has been the Ex-Homeschoolers Club. We'll be back next week. Remember, comment, like, subscribe, do all of the normal things. I don't want to beg you to do it, but please do. It helps grow the show. And yeah, reach out to your friends. If you enjoyed this, maybe share this with a friend who hasn't watched the show. And yeah, until next week, peace out.